The more friends you lose, the more money you make. Over the past 2 years of my business entrepreneurship journey, I've lost several friends, honestly, more than I can count on two hands. And not just friends, but people that I've found very close to me just departing my life as if I never existed. And the whole idea of people leaving your life has changed in my perspective. I used to first look at it as people not liking me and that I should do something to keep them in my life or please them or to prove them, just to try to give them a reason to stay. And eventually I realized and I altered my perspective to looking at it as a book. Your life is a book. Your life is a book in which you don't know how many chapters there are left. When you read a book, not every character from the start remains to the very end. And with that being said, not every character is introduced at the first chapter. The only difference between a novel that you purchase from the bookstore and the novel that you are living in is that the one you're living in right now, you are the author, you hold the narrative. You can dictate exactly what's going to happen in your life. And the quicker that you realize that every book, every chapter has characters that depart and enter for a reason, the quicker you will grow and evolve into the better person that you want to become. Me losing friends was an indicator that I was doing something different to what other people were doing, to what my friends at that time were doing. And I wanted to please them. I wanted to show them that, hey, stay with me, I'm a great friend. But then I realized that everything I was doing was completely different to the other friends that they have. I wasn't going to university anymore. I dropped out. They laughed at me. I was no longer drinking or going to clubs. They laughed at me. They talked down upon me. I started doing things that no one else heard of, doing online business as if that's a real thing anymore. Apparently it's not, but apparently it works. Apparently you get lucky once it works. But when people leave you in your life, when you lose people around you, not necessarily that you lose people, but you might even cut some people off or you might distance yourself from certain people, it's a sign from the universe, from your future self, saying that this is the path that you must take, and these characters in your life are departing from this chapter. These characters are no longer going to be prominent or exist in the coming chapters of your life. And who knows, maybe in a couple more chapters, they might return back in some way or the other. Maybe as a friend, maybe as an acquaintance, maybe as an enemy, or maybe just an observer that watches from afar and wishes that they were still a part of that chapter of your life, of your novel. And this same concept even applies in business for me. When I let go of clients, when partnerships fall off, I don't tell myself that I'm doing something wrong. I just tell myself that I'm doing something very different to what most other people in the same space do. I have higher standards now. When I lost my friends, when I cut people off, I just realized that my standards in my life were just unmatched by those people and that I never saw any potential for them to match my level. And I'm not saying that I'm better than other people. I'm just saying that I have different standards, I have different boundaries, I have different expectations from the people and the energy I keep around myself. And energy is a big thing, guys. When you devote your energy into certain things, you don't want other minor things sucking away from that energy, because you are a battery at the end of the day. You don't want to leak your energy into places that don't help you in any way. So when certain connections are cut off, it raises two questions in my mind. First of all, was this person really worth keeping around in the first place? Probably not. Were there good memories made? Yes. Well, I guess there are more than two questions, but several questions rotate around your mind to get over and wrap your head around what just happened. You losing a client, or you losing a friend, you getting broken up with, maybe a family member doesn't like you anymore. Something of that sort. When things like that happen, you have questions which you want answers to. And you can only get answers to so many questions. But there are certain questions that you may never get the answer to. Why did this person leave? Why did this person not like me? And believe it or not, the best way to accept what just happened and move on is by feeding yourself with conclusions that benefit you. For example, when a lot of my friends stopped talking to me and distanced themselves away with no given reason, for a very long time I was caught up in a very dark spot where I just thought something was severely wrong with me and that people will constantly just keep leaving in my life. Matter of fact, one of my friends, I remember, we were in the heat of a very vague argument, and it was the fall of our friendship. And he called me up, and it was about a 7 second call, maybe 10 seconds. And all he said was, I think this is word by word quote. He said, "Now I know why people keep leaving in your life." And then he hung up. And at that moment, I didn't really take it well, and I was a very rash person. And when I look back in hindsight, I realized that it's just that people don't see value in you until you create value out of yourself. And in retrospect, I probably still don't know the entire truth behind why a lot of my friendships and past relationships ended, the entire truth. But what I told myself was just that these people don't fuck with you, but you fuck with yourself. You like the path I like the path that I'm on. I don't care what people think. If they have a problem with it, fine. If you don't want to be my friend, fine. If disrespect is the currency to justify why something fell off, I'll take it. When people disrespected me in the past, I used to get very angry, very agitated. But now when I get disrespected, I don't get sad, I don't cry, I don't get angry, I don't get upset. I look at the situation, I think about the person, and I say, you were a great addition to this chapter of my life, and it's time for me to move on to the next. I don't care what the justification is, I don't care what the reasoning is, and I don't care what further you have to say. But the disrespect is enough for me to move on and for me to carry on with the remaining chapters of my life. I don't know how many chapters I have left, and neither do you. The last thing you want to do is stare at a blank page, pretending like the chapter hasn't ended yet, but in reality it has, and it's time for you to move on to the next. And as I said a few minutes ago, the same concept applies in business. When you lose business partners, when you lose partnerships with clients, it's not because you weren't good enough, it's because your standards changed. Your expectations changed. The company standards have been raised to a point where a lot of people can't match that. When you get rid of sales reps, it's because they can't match your standards. It's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you're a bad friend. It's not because you're a bad business partner. It's not because you're a bad operator. It's not because you're a bad business owner. It's because your standards have changed. And it's a good thing, because when something changes, you know that something is going to change. It's like people expect to change without there being a change. If you want to change in your life, change something about your life. If you want to change something in your company, change something about the company. If you want to make more money, raise the bar, raise the standards, be more strict, be more upfront, be more clear. There are so many things you can do to up-level yourself in several aspects of your life. But for that to happen, you need to take that uncomfortable step, uncomfortable decision to make that change. Because it's comfortable to just not make a change and sit back and say, my life is sort of cruising at the moment and I'm pretty happy at this level. I'm probably slightly above average, but I want to just maintain this because I have some nice friends, I have some nice partnerships, my business is making a stable amount of money. But that's not going to scale your life. It's not going to scale your income. It's not going to scale your company. So you see how the experience with my social life has sort of carried on to my business life. Some people might be pessimistic about it and say you might need to see a therapist because your past trauma is affecting your current life. But the way I look at it is that I'm not going to let my experience be ignored, but I'd rather use that as my learning curve into becoming a better and more wise person as the days go by. Not just in my social life, but even with my business, with my business partner, with my sales reps, with my sales manager, and with my friends, with my girlfriend, with my parents, with my family. The past experience is what's going to develop the better version of you, and you can't argue otherwise. There's no point just looking at experience and ignoring it and just saying that this time it might be different. But in reality, you're hoping for a different outcome with the same input. It doesn't make sense. So coming back to what I said at the start of this video, you losing friends will make you more money inevitably. Your innate self knows that you cutting out the noise around you with the bullshit that you don't want to tolerate anymore is going to impact in something great. You letting go of these awful people in your life that create noise and chaos and drama, and you inviting more room for positive energy, is never going to end in a bad way. It's never going to result in a disaster. It's only going to create your dreams into reality. Your innate self is screaming for you to do something about it. Your innate self is screaming for you to make a change. Your innate self is screaming for you to take action into the things that will lead you to your goal. Your innate self is asking and begging for you to move on to the next chapter and begin the next, begging for you to stop looking at the same end of the chapter time and again, hoping that the chapter will continue, because in reality, the next chapter is waiting for you. But you have to make it yourself. You have to write it yourself. Now I have a question for you. You watching this video would have resulted in two different types of people, and you have to make a choice. One, the person that watches this video and continues on with their regular life with no change. Person B, guy that makes a monumental change, moves on to the next chapter, starts a new one, rewrites his story. The guy that makes monumental change by flicking over to the next page of his own novel.